just finished my fringe run, so that's 21 shows of talking for an hour. And I woke up this morning and I was like, I can't speak anymore. This piece, it's called The Weight of Numbers. I always liked maths in high school, because I studied it when I had to in sort of first and second year, and then I chose to study it when I got into the sort of higher fifth, sixth year. And for some unknown reason, I decided to pursue that into university and did it for the first 2 years at uni. I gave up learning in my second year. It'll become a little more obvious why later on, but I sort of got bored of it all. But during my fifth and sixth years, I learned several complex mathematical proofs by heart, so I could write them out in full because I was that nerdy. My math teacher fell in love with me the day he came into our registration class and saw me very hurriedly spin the board to a blank space. And he spun it around and there was differentiation from first principles, and he just looked at me and went, I'm going to have fun with you this year. The reason why I liked picking up on all that is I like the step-by-step formula maths has. No matter how messed up and confusing life is, there's something about it that can never let me down, the logic of it. If you follow the steps, no matter what you put into the process, you will always get a consistent answer at the end of it. And I like that. I like that there's always an answer. The fact that I then went on to do philosophy, where there's no right answer, bewilders me to this day. That one dependable answer balanced out a lot of what happens inside my head, most of which is chaotic. Because of this maths obsession, I have a love of patterns and numbers, sequences and series. My favourite is 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 35, 34, 45. It goes on endlessly. But it's the first 10 numbers of the Fibonacci sequence, which is formed by adding each new number is the previous two added together. And there's something nice and balanced about that, a sequence formed of its own members. I also like the different types of numbers you get. I'm not going to go into the hideous amount of deep maths I know about this, but there are whole numbers, perfect numbers, happy numbers, sad numbers, rational numbers, and irrational numbers. And I love that we've grouped them in sections of that and that we've called them that. I love some of the numbers. 6 is the first perfect number. 9 was a very powerful number in ancient cultures because it's 3 by 3. And 3 was powerful on its own, so 3 threes was obviously significantly more powerful. 21, the age of sort of becoming an adult, roughly speaking. 30, the age I presume we should all have our shit together. I am 10 months away and I am nowhere near that. The one that I found this morning, which is what prompted this, 595. That's the important number for today. I looked it up. In terms of number theory, it's really boring. Nothing really happens at 595. It's just a number. There's a titanic amount of weight in those digits for me, though. 595 seconds is just about 10 minutes. So 595 minutes is about 10 hours. 595 hours is roughly 25 days. 595 days is just a little bit over a year and a half. So that's 595 days, which is 85 weeks, 14,280 hours, 856,800 minutes, which is how long it's been since I last cut myself. And I know that's a hell of a thing to drop into conversation randomly, so apologies. But I've never felt the need to be all that protective of that information. I think that when we tell each other the worst of what we know, we get a sense of how other people are feeling. And the more I understand how other people are feeling and how they're getting through their lives, the better I'll be able to help them and the better they'll be able to help me. And if we can get everyone doing that, I reckon we'll be going in the right direction. I mean, we need to get rid of Donald Trump as well, but one thing at a time, guys. I think there's something really powerful, deeply, deeply basic and utterly immutable about telling each other that even in the worst of places we have to go through, the worst of places we could end up, we're absolutely never alone. So in the moments when I'm sort of up and I'm in good days, when the darkness hasn't quite pulled me out of myself, I'm very open about what happens. I feel it's the only way. I feel it's only in telling difficult stories, the tough words, the points we wish we didn't have to make, that we pull back the stigma on all the difficult stories. And once we get rid of the stigma, more people will tell the difficult stories and they won't be difficult anymore. I'm a writer, obviously. And I've been focusing on my writing for about 7 years, which is roughly the amount of time that I've been aware of the various things that are going wrong inside my head. I have both cyclothymic disorder and ADHD. I'm sure most of us have a vague understanding of ADHD. You know, hyperactive kids running around chewing sugar and eating all the things. Everything gets touched and put down, touched and put down. A t-shirt which I really wish I'd bought when I spotted it in a shop. It had the AC/DC writing on it, but it said ADHD. And underneath it said attention deficit hyperactive. Oh, look, a squirrel! Sadly, I don't have that side of it. I don't have the running around chewing on sugar. I have the inattentive version of ADHD, which means I get bored with doing mundane things, monotonous things, doing the same thing over and over again. So having the same conversation over and over again is very boring for me. So I work in a call centre. Not the best idea. I often forget basic, simple things. Birthdays, favourite meals, how to cook something correctly, all that sort of stuff often falls out the back of my head without thinking about it. And I often zone out in the middle of conversations. If I think someone's telling me, like, if I get a conversation that's like, he said blah blah blah, she said blah blah blah, third line, I'm gone. I am looking at the trees, I'm looking at anything running across the road, which means when the question comes in, what do you think? I'm like, oh, could you repeat that? So this is why I flunked out of maths in uni, because they were teaching me the same stuff I learned 3 years previously, and I suddenly couldn't care anymore. Cyclothymia, which is the other thing, is the bit on the scale between major depressive disorder and bipolar disorder. So that I have random sort of periods where I feel like, oh, great, the next 6 months are going to be crap. And then randomly, like, oh, actually the next 6 weeks are going to be great. That's much easier to deal with because I'm usually aware when it's going to happen and I can usually plan for it. Losing my attention halfway through a conversation, I have no control over. Although I do take some solace in the fact that one of the most famous cyclothymics in Britain is Stephen Fry. That's not relevant, I just think that's a good club to be part of, if I'm honest. So at varying points in my life, I suffer from sort of massive depressions. And one of those major symptoms is the desire to self-harm, which I do in 3 specific ways. Firstly is a pathological negligence about self and sort of the space I occupy. You have no idea the levels of just clutter that depression will fill your rooms with if you let them. I've owned my own place for 11 years now. I've painted 4 walls. That's it. Everything else is exactly the same and it's beginning to fall apart. There's punching of walls, punching of self, and then there's cutting. Which, weirdly, I think there's something else going in the background because it only ever happens on my left arm. Don't know why. I assume it's because I'm right-handed and too lazy to think of anything more inventive than that. All of these are heavy burdens. Not just for me. I've been doing this for 29 years. I'm kind of used to what's going on in my head. What is the most heavy thing is watching what it does to other people. So, I say it's been 595 days since my last episode, as it were. And it was in the middle of a fight with my now ex-girlfriend. Nothing to do with that. And for whatever reason, there were standy blades in the flat. And we had an argument, and it didn't go well. And suddenly, it was just static. That's all there was. Couldn't think, I couldn't express, there was no words, which as a writer is a really weird place to get to, when you can't even describe the inside of your own head to yourself. And I snapped and I cut. And what shook me the most about it was watching her react to it, because I'd never really seen it before. I hid it much better when I was younger. It was something that I pretended didn't happen, because if I wasn't acknowledging it, then no one else had to deal with it. It wasn't a thing, it wasn't real. But watching her crying whilst trying to bandage me clicked something in the back of my head somewhere. And suddenly I realised that what I was used to being heavy for me wasn't actually significantly more heavy for her. And I started thinking about numbers and the weight that I give numbers. Because the bigger the number, traditionally, the larger the quantity, the more impressive the quantity. We'd all rather have £1 million than 10, yes? It doesn't work that way for me anymore. I flip them round. It's inverted now. And the reason I talk so openly about everything I have to go through is because I'm aware of how heavy it is for anyone else who's dealing with that. And I'd like to help, if I can. Make that slightly less heavy for you. Because when I'm alone, and everything feels like it's just pushing down, its planets pinning me to the bed, and there's an excessive amount of weight. When I'm in the company of someone who loves me, I feel like I'm at the bottom of a mountain. It's still heavy, but it's nothing like as bad. And when I'm in the company of someone who gets what's going on in my head, someone who gets the feelings, gets the logic that goes on at those times, suddenly it's just like having a really heavy backpack on. And it's much, much easier to carry. When I'm staring at brand new blood-coloured gaps in my arm, and it's been 0 days since my last attack, suddenly it feels like I'm already drowning, and what is the point? When it's been 1 day, I'm still all edges and precipices. Falling would be easier, but I've got 24 hours behind me. And never has 24 seemed like such an important number. And 595 days in, suddenly it's like being able to fly, properly. Full on catching the thermals, I'm Superman type flying. And that's partly only because I'm aware that in 5 days it'll be 600, and 600 is a really cool number. So, despite the flip of the numbers, 595 days weighs so much less than 1. 1 day is really heavy. Nearly 600 is feathers. But the best of all possible weight reduction comes when you find that someone else has benefited. And I've never, in the entire time I've been dealing with all of these things, felt lighter than when, she would have been about 13 at the time. I would have been 15. She'd been having a tough time. She'd been having a really difficult 6 months, I think it was. And she'd spotted that I had a scar on my arm. And it was the first one I'd ever done, and there was only one scar. But she spotted it, and we, ironically enough, we were both in first aid training. And she pulled me aside, and she sort of asked the questions without asking the questions. And we got chatting, and I sort of explained what was going on with me and how I felt and what I did to sort of get through it. And then we broke for Christmas. Didn't see her for 4 months. But I got a Christmas card from her, which I still have. And in it, she acknowledges that she probably would have committed suicide if she hadn't found that she wasn't alone. And that is genuinely the lightest I have ever felt in my entire life, which is why I still have that card. And that's only one. But the reason I've become a poet who talks about mental health as much as I do is because I'd like that one to be as many as I can humanly reach. That's why I obsess about the waste of numbers. Thank you.